My big impression as I read through this affidavit, a lot of people have asked me this question, like, what's the big thing that stood out? And the thing about it is it's almost not even one particular thing. It is the incredible serendipity, the luck that they had with some of these things that fell into place that allowed them to make the connections. The roommate seeing him, getting that visual on him is one of those things that is absolutely critical, because without her having seen him, they had no reason to identify him, this guy from WSU with a Hyundai, as any more suspicious than necessarily anybody else in the area with a Hyundai. So it's very unlikely that they would have then been able to go and get that cell phone information, that cell site location information, the pings we call them, to be able to, ostensibly track his location and line it up with the timeline of the murders and stuff. And then as well, the fact that he had gotten that traffic stop in Moscow that let them get his cell phone. They wouldn't have been able to get his ping if this guy just wore his seatbelt. If he had been wearing his seatbelt that day, they don't have his cell phone and there's nothing to ping.
So four traffic stops. That's the thing I think a lot of people were losing at first. It seemed like there were 4 traffic stops, right? There's 2 before the murders and 2 after, which were generally in transit from Moscow to Pennsylvania. So obviously the ones before, we don't have those. I don't believe we have the video from the ones that were before the murder. I don't think we have that. I know we do have the video from the ones after. Did you take anything from the ones where we have, let's start with the ones we have video. Did you take anything from those traffic stops?
I didn't really. I mean, I found them not particularly helpful to the state from an evidentiary standpoint. The story that's out is that they were trying to, capture injuries on his hands or something like that. There is nothing like that is plainly, evident in the videos. So the worst thing I think that comes out of it is the conversation that they had about the shooting at WSU. But that also, to me, that just doesn't seem that strange. If they're driving back, they hear it on the radio. If it seems kind of normal to me that would be that would be something that you would talk about. I think the real question is, what impression do people have of Dad here? Now, there has been so much speculation about the family, and I want to plant my flag instantly, immediately, firmly. Be kind to his family, unless and until there is evidence that they are complicit in any of this, because they have lost their son. Okay, they have gone through an incredibly traumatic experience as well. And theirs is one that people don't have a lot of empathy for. So they are suffering very much alone right now. So I just want to make sure that I get that out there. Having said that, clearly this is our first good look at Dad and Dad's interactions. And he comes across as pretty clueless, at least to me. You see, Bryan kind of continually giving him these looks like, what are you doing here? What are you doing here?
And I will tell you, Andrew, these looks, and I feel like before we got the affidavit, we had this footage, and I think people were convicting Bryan on like this look. Like they're like, look at his look. This look is a look of somebody who's guilty. So I swear to you, they convicted him on this. One thing I will say, my takeaway was from this immediately was, shut the fuck up. You guys are talking way too much for a routine traffic stop. Like, I'm sorry, the police are not your friends. If you're being pulled over, this is not friendly Officer Joe who just wants to talk to you about your day. He's got better shit to do too. He does not want to be talking to you. He's investigating crime. So the amount of information they gave away was unnecessary. Now look, I do agree with you on the thing that if there's a mass shooting, that's a big news item. You want to talk about it. You want to talk about why you're leaving an area due to a mass shooting. I get that, right? It's a news item, right? If around 9/11.
The important thing to remember here too is it was a big news item because they weren't sure if it was connected to these homicides, and so it did get a lot of coverage because of that.
Exactly. Now, I will say, the dad comes off as clueless, but he comes off as a really normal guy. He doesn't come off as a weird guy or anything else. Like, this is a dad. There's nothing about him that, to me, makes him complicit in this or puts them in any level of culpability, which is exactly why I will say, look, these people are innocent. These people have nothing to do with it. And people that harassed parents, people that make comments about them and comments about the complicity, I think that's completely uncalled for. And has a lot of issues. And yes, I know it's muted. I just wanted to show these guys and the interaction here. The words really aren't that important as much as just, hey, people were obsessing about the interaction itself, right? Nothing they say in this traffic stop in and of itself leads to culpability. Just it was exciting that we have this footage in Indiana.
This was the first time, these videos were the first time we've seen him like live and in action and talking and stuff, So I understand the interest in it, but definitely as evidence, I think they have pretty minimal value.
Yeah. What do you think about, so let's talk about the roommate for a second. Do you think that creates issues here? Because when I was following this case, the issue was, hey, the roommate and the story of the roommate was that before the affidavit was that they did not call the police. They waited till the next day. They went upstairs and found the bodies and thought they were unconscious. And then a friend came over and the friend was the one who contacted police. And I believe that story was parroted by law enforcement. Now we have, Dylan, which is a girl, one of the roommates, saying that she heard all these things. She heard a commotion, heard the dog barking, heard, I think somebody's here, and then saw a black-clad figure. And according to what I'm hearing, she locked herself in, did not call the police. Did that raise alarm bells for you and kind of say, okay, well, is this something as a public defender you'd be bringing up? In the case, is this like a major point for the defense, perhaps?
I don't see it as really a major point. It's certainly something they're going to have to ask, but there's also going to be plausible explanations for it. Trauma, stress, these are complicated things.
Drinking, maybe.
Drinking might be implicated. Yeah. I told a story where when I was in college, one night about 3 a.m, I woke up and found, my door is open and these people are kind of walking around through my kitchen area. And I'm kind of, you're like trying to make sense out of things in that moment. And I remember thinking like, gosh, did my neighbor like need something from my kitchen? And they just, decided to come in. It would make no sense for them to do that. Never done anything like that before, but you're just trying to, to figure it out. And I couldn't, and it just didn't cross my mind. Even though I see these people, they pulled the knives out of my block in my kitchen. They're like walking around with my freaking kitchen knives. And I see this, but it just doesn't register. And so my instinct is to just sit up and say, can I help you? And I was very lucky that, they ran out of the house. They didn't run at me, but it's not a rational type of situation like that. You just don't know how you're going to respond. So I'm not going to hold that against her. I think there are going to be plausible explanations for that. But where I think it has potentially some value for the defense, although I think it's minimal, is really just calling into question the accuracy of her observations. If she is under that much stress, it makes it that much more difficult to get an accurate impression of things. A lot of people have already asked, well, why didn't she see the knife? Where's the knife? That's not how, stress memories work. Like in danger, responding to danger. That's not how that works. It would be totally, expected that you would notice something like that. So I think that, yes, they're going to have to explore it. There might be some small details like that they could poke holes in, but are they going to be substantial enough to, undo this entire circumstantial picture that the state is clearly building up here? I think that's unlikely.
Yeah, there's a lot of circumstantial evidence, being built here.
And I want to say too that, I've said this is a circumstantial case, and people often take that as like me saying it's bad. But no, the reality is the overwhelming majority of criminal cases are circumstantial cases, because unless you catch somebody on camera, unless you have an eyewitness who sees them do it, or unless they confess, then that's what you're dealing with. You're dealing with showing that their explanation isn't plausible. And if you look at the entire facts and circumstances surrounding it, you can infer that this person committed the crime. So most of the time that is what